Live from Lincoln Center is also made possible by grants from the Robert Wood Johnson Jr. Charitable Trust and the National Endowment for the Arts.
Coming next week, deep from within the mountain jungles of Colombia comes a warning from an ancient people. The Koji are convinced modern society is murdering the planet Earth. He was one of the most influential politicians of this century, and at times seemed larger than life. He could be magnificent and inspiring, and he could intimidate and bully. He was passionate and powerful, and he wanted it all. He was LBJ. Don't you just hate it when this happens? You take a vacation to get away from Scotland Yard, and in the middle of unpacking, there's a murder. Not just one, but lots. It's back to work for Adam Dalgleish next week on KCTS 9.
Serious Money and Inside return to Friday nights. The fall season premieres October 4th here on KCTS 9.
Let's return backstage to Hugh Downs, this time with our Cherubino, Kathryn Gamberoni, and our conductor, Scott Bergeson.
Scott, Kathy, what a crowd-pleasing role you have as Cherubino.
It's the best one in the opera.
Is it? You think so?
It's a gift role.
You do have fun with it. You know, one of the things we haven't commented on yet, I mean, they're getting the place built. The acting in this is really remarkable. And how do you feel about the acting aspect of singing opera?
That's probably one of the things that attracted me to opera, was the theater part of it.
Right.
I enjoy that the most, and especially with this bunch of people.
That seems to have evolved more over generations, where there was a time when a lot of opera, I'm told, was done just where you squared off and sang arias, and the acting wasn't so important, and sometimes was called wooden.
It's funny because when I think of opera arias and opera itself as an art form, there's so much passion and everything is bigger than life. It is theater. So without the acting part, I don't see how the music even exists.
The acting is great in this production. Scott, in conducting an opera, if you conduct a symphony, you're sort of by yourself with the orchestra. Where in concerto, you've got to consider one solo virtuoso. In an opera with all of those people, does that pose a bigger challenge than any kind of conducting?
It is. It's more complex than just working with an orchestra or with one soloist, and so you have to be a little bit more flexible, be willing to go with the flow a lot more, and also different singers have different ways of doing things, different weights of voices, color voices, different temperaments. So it's never exactly the same, but the challenges are rewarding because you get a chance to get involved in the theatricality of it.
Sure. How long have you been conducting this production?
I started this production, I think, in '83. Yeah, 1983.
So how many times would that make?
I haven't really counted. I'm up to somewhere around 50 performances of Figaro. Not all of them right here.
Is it different now in any way to you than it was in the first few times you did it?
Well, I'm a little bit more cognizant than the very first few times I did it. But one thing that never changes is it's always like riding the crest of a wave. I mean, you start at the beginning and it just sort of carries you through right to the end.
Yeah.
It's always been a special thing for me ever since the first time I did it.
Yeah. I want to come back to the acting for a second, because one of the immense challenges I would think would be, and they did this in opera right up through Rosenkavalier, I guess, where you a woman playing the part of a man who then plays the part of a woman. Do you ever get wires crossed about which you're supposed to be?
Well, you know, it's really funny. We've been working with John Copley all along, and we just changed something a few performances ago, where instead of me wearing my boots under the dress in the next act when they dressed me up, he had me put stockings and shoes on. And when I walked out on stage that night with stockings and shoes on, I felt really humiliated. I felt really
you felt like a man wearing...
I really did, and I thought, this is really strange.
That is strange. That's marvelous. I understand that Dean Peterson sometimes has helped you backstage to get into your macho
yes,
mood.
He comes back to my dressing room before every performance for male bonding.
Male bonding.
And he slugs me a few times, hits me on the back, and we talk low.
And that helps.
I guess so.
That is great. Scott, you probably don't have as long. Well, I could ask both of you. You mentioned John Copley. He is said to be a singer's director. Does that strike you as the case?
Oh, unquestionably. I mean, he understands. I mean, you should be in rehearsals with him. I mean, he can sing all of the roles, and
he's a wonderful countess.
Yeah, he's fabulous, and he really understands the necessities of what it takes to make them look good, yet so that the sound always comes out. And I think a lot of people who are less experienced with opera don't always pay attention to that, and kind of get lost in their own thing, whereas John always works in a collaborative way.
And he also comes from the music, which not all directors do. So everything you do is very musical.
Yeah, that's
dramatic.
he commented on it. They're signaling me that you have got to go back to work.
An act to do.
Yeah. And so I really enjoyed talking with you. We'll be seeing you in the upcoming act. And in the meantime, Kathy, I wanted to ask you about singing Cherubino. You also have sung Susanna.
I have, yes.
Which, is there a preference? One's a lot longer
I'll tell
than
you,
the other.
Cherubino is more fun.
Is it more
and
fun?
Your feet don't hurt as much at the end of the evening.
That's right, because the total time on stage is enormous for Susanna.
It's the longest soprano role.
Right.
It is. It's a real workout. And Cherubino gets to cause all the trouble and comes out smelling like a rose. So it's really fun.
Enviable role, you're right.
Very
Now, you met up with Marriage of Figaro in Santa Fe at the opera. Is that right? Or is that...
Yes, actually, that's the first time Scott and I worked together, and it was really kind of unusual. I had seen the dress rehearsal, and the Susanna, the opening night, got sick during Acts 1 and 2, and I did Acts 3 and 4. So at least this time, Scott and I have actually rehearsed before we performed together.
How did you know? Had you understudied it, or had you sung it before?
Actually 7 years before.
You had, yeah.
And it was there. It somehow
and it
stayed
came
in
back
my mind.
in short order? Boy, that's pressure.
And then you always have the stage managers and the assistant directors backstage saying, okay, now you go here, go left in this, pick up the letter to this and this, and you come off stage and they do it again.
A lot of adrenaline there.
Yes.
I would imagine that's So in doing that, I'm going to ask you something I asked some of the others. Is there a fundamental difference in singing Mozart from singing Verdi or Puccini or any of the other operas?
I think there's a purity about Mozart and a real joy and simplicity that you don't really find to that degree in Verdi or Puccini. And I think also he really gives you your characters in the music. You can really find everything you need.
Find easier than you can in the others.
I think so.
Very interesting.
He was great.
Well, certainly is special. You're married to a conductor.
Yes, I am.
That's right. Is that a boon to your career?
It's a boon to my personal life. Actually, we work together a couple of times a year, and we really enjoy working together that way. When we do recitals together, where he's a pianist and I'm the singer, it's a little more difficult because that's a little more equal. When I'm a singer and I have a conductor, I know my place. I know who's the one I'm supposed to listen to, who's in charge.
Conversely, you could say the conductor is supposed to accompany you and follow what you're doing.
I do say that to him before. I usually say that at a Sitzprobe or something. I'll say, honey, just follow me here.
That's the way to do it, right. The complications in this opera, when I think that the last act is really much more complicated than any of the others. And yet watching these now, it's hard for me to imagine that an act can be more complicated than some of the things we've just seen. How do you keep track of all the things of where you're supposed to be and all the comings and goings?
I keep track. Rehearsal, relying on your colleagues to know where they're going to.
How much rehearsal did you have for this production?
We had about 4 weeks altogether. And actually, I'm the only new one to this production this year. So I always felt they were kind of having to rehearse for me. But it's been really great fun.
And everybody likes everybody else, which is a
yes. And also they're a mischievous group as well.
I heard, yeah. Wasn't there one of you made a mistake and the other imitated it?
Well, actually, it's in this act which we just did. Susanna mimics me, and you can always tell from looking into Maureen's eyes that she's always there. And I sing, ah, sì, certo. And that night that I did it, the R got stuck, so I, ah, sì, certo. And so she sang, ah, sì, certo. So we had a little laugh. I don't know if the audience did.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to the rest of it. I'll see you back on stage.
Okay, great.
Very nice talking with you.
You too. Thank you.
And that was our Cherubino, Kathryn Gamberoni, in conversation with Hugh Downs. And earlier, our conductor, Scott Bergeson, who, of course, had to leave the conversation a little bit early to prepare for the third act of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. This production of the New York City Opera coming to you from the New York State Theater as part of our continuing Live from Lincoln Center series. Here is Scott Bergeson, Act 3 of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro.
È mai questo un foglio anonimo, la cameriera in gabinetto chiusa, la padrona confusa, un uomo che salta dal balcone in giardino, un altro appresso che dice ser quel desso, non so cosa pensar.
Via fasticone, digli che c'è gente in giardino, invece tuo vuoi mangiare che io mi dessi oddio, braso mezzo, che in tuo paio il mio riposo. Signor,
Cosa bramate?
mi pare che siete innamorato.
Volete qualche cosa?
Signor, la vostra sposa ha i peccatori e vi tiene di assistere gli orari.
Prendete!
Ora me ne ricordo.
Ah no, potete ritenerlo per voi.
Per me, questi non sa male rammetriani.
Un amante che perde il caro sposo sul punto lo tenerlo.
Guardando Marcellina con le donne che voi mi promettete.
Io vi promisi, quando?
Crede averlo inteso.
Sì, se voluto avesse intendermi voi stessa.
È mio dovere, e quello di sua eccellenza, è il mio volere.
Crudel, perché finora farmi languir così? Perché, crudel, farmi languir così?
Signor, la donna ognuno può dirvi sì.
Dunque in giardin verrai,
Se piace a voi verrò,
e non ne mancherai.
non vi mancherò.
Verrai,
Sì.
non mancherai, dunque verrai.
Non mancherò, non vi mancherò.
Mi sento dal contento, pieno di gioia il cor. Mi sento dal contento, pieno di gioia il cor. Dunque in giardin verrai,
Se piace a voi verrò,
e non mi mancherai.
non vi mancherò.
Verrai, non mancherai,
No.
dunque verrai.
No.
No,